Welcome to the Southern U Podcast, brought to you by Darton Archery on the OKest Podcast Network, with your co-host, Matt Brock, Jeremy Ferguson, and Taylor McMurtry. If you're looking for all things land-related in the Southeast, you came to the right place. Whether it's real estate, habitat, wildlife, or just being outdoors, this is the place for you. Welcome to the Southern U. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Southern U Podcast, where we talk all things land related. We talk hunting and agriculture, and today we always talk about talking timber, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. We got a few timber experts live with us. We're going through Riverside today, so we couldn't be all be in the same room, do it in person, but I'm going to briefly let you guys go around. I say go around the room, go around the box, and you guys just kind of give some brief intros, who you are, who you're with, little experience, and those sort of things. If we've had Andrew, we've had Todd on before, but we've got a few people that have not been on the show before. So I guess we'll start up there with Andrew, and we'll work our way around.
Hey, I'm Drew Green. I've got my own company here with Green Habitat Consulting. Kind of little history. I came from a biologist and forester background with game and fish, and kind of worked my way into starting my own business, and that's where I'm at now.
Awesome, man. Also new to the show, Mr. Matt Reeves.
Yeah.
Matt, why don't you hit us with a little intro?
Yeah. My name is Matthew Reeves. I am in north central Alabama. I work for a company, 4X Timber. We are a dealer here, run multiple logging crews. My background is got my education from Auburn, a degree in forestry and wildlife sciences. I'm a registered forester. And then I worked for a corporate company for 6 years, buying wood and working with open market suppliers. So I have a very good outlook on the corporate and the mill perspective, as well as now the private sector, being a dealer. So yeah, that's who I am. Glad to be here today.
Awesome, man. We certainly appreciate you jumping on, hanging out with us for a little bit. And Mr. Todd Lowry, looks like Todd and Company. We got Todd plus one in his little box right there. So let's get a couple intros.
Yes, I got my buddy Clint Mansell. He works with the Westervelt Company. Clint and I have been friends for 30 years. We met at Auburn. I knew he and I were going to be buddies because the first day of summer camp, he pulls up in a Dodge Dakota with a 12-foot aluminum boat and a bunch of fishing reels in the back. And I walked over to him and shook his hand. I said, "You're bunking next to me."
Yeah, no doubt.
That's a true story right there.
Yeah.
But tell them about yourself, Clint.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Alabama, and grew up in a logging family, my mom's family. And so my granddad was a timber buyer and a logger, and ended up going to Auburn and graduated in forestry, and then went over to South Georgia and worked for a little while. Came back to Alabama, went to work for Westervelt. They're a natural resource, lumber business, kind of a lot of things, sporting lodges, mitigation banks, just a lot of stuff. And spent 28 years so far, those guys. 16 in like procurement, harvesting, sawmill, and then 12 in land management. So been around the block a little bit in the timber industry in the Southeast. So, yeah, I'm glad to be here with Todd. I don't get to hang out with him a lot, so it's been fun. Yeah. So
Kind of background on me. I'm an Auburn guy as well, and I was in procurement for many years, working for a couple different wood dealers, had our own logging crews. It was fun. Probably 10 years ago, I transitioned out of that and focused more on my real estate side, and did a lot of consulting forestry, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. And we work mostly central Alabama, East Mississippi, kind of anywhere from Tuscaloosa to, I'd say, really Chatham. That's kind of my center range. Cover about 8 or 10 counties, and it's been interesting here lately, boys. I can tell you what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my area is kind of the same. It's a little bit north of Todd, but we work mainly from like US 80 up to Fayette County, Pickens County, edge of Lamar County, and then over into Mississippi, like Lauderdale, Kemper, all those counties between Columbus and Meridian. So that's kind of my area.
Yeah.
I got you. Well, cool. And then, of course, we got Fergie Ferg, Mr. Jeremy Ferguson. He's on the bottom of my screen. I don't know what he looks like for you guys.
I live on the bottom, brother.
He's top dog for me on my screen, so that evens it out.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think most everybody knows my background. Got a degree in wildlife from Auburn many moons ago, it feels like. I kid people, I've got the forestry degree by hard knocks. So I left Auburn and immediately went to work in the forestry industry and stayed there from 2005 until 2014, where I transitioned to state government. We'll leave that alone. Didn't last long there. And started my own business and selling real estate full time in 2019.
Gotcha. I'm the only one in the chat that has no experience in wildlife nor forestry. So the only reason that I'm here, me and Jeremy talked about this earlier, is like I think we need to do an episode on timber and just kind of the market, where it's at right now, and kind of what a problem that is and how it impacts wildlife. And I said, well, I'm not really going to be much help in that. I'm not going to really shed any light on any of those types of things. I don't know jack diddly about it. But what I will do is just kind of chime in for the common folk. And when you guys start throwing out terms that I don't understand, I'm going to go, hold up, time out. Explain what you just said as if I was an alien and I landed on Earth and I don't know what a tree is. Like tell me, just explain things in a way that I can understand them. And maybe we'll be able to relay that to all the other not foresters and not biologists. So, but yeah, I think appreciate you guys being here. I know it's time out of your day and this is after hours and all that. So we appreciate you taking the time. And I guess to be respectful of your time, we can just go ahead and jump straight into the topic at hand. Jeremy, I know I'm going to kind of let you take the lead on this. I'm normally the guy that's throwing questions at people, but I don't even know what questions to ask. So I'm going to let Jeremy kind of handle that.
So if you watch much, we try to throw out a property that we highlight. A lot of us are real estate professionals, and Todd mentioned he was, with us at Tut. Todd, highlight a property for us, and we're gonna push that out. Just give us some basic details on something that you've got available right now.
Okay, I got a new listing. I haven't posted it yet. It's around 785 acres, contiguous block. It's got about 140 acres of 1-year-old pine, and the rest of it's pretty big mature hardwood and older plantations. Excellent tract, deer, turkey, nice food plots. It's good, but the best thing is it's $2,300 an acre.
Wow.
It's power. It's got good access, really good neighbors. It's a nice one. Good tract.
Okay, what county?
That's Choctaw County. The tract is probably 5 miles kind of northwest of Butler, Alabama.
Okay. Now tell folks how to get in touch with you. Obviously, they can get you at the Habitat Network and at tutland.com. But give me your email address and phone number.
Yeah, best way to catch me is Todd at tutland.com. TODD at tutland.com.
Good deal. All right. Well, appreciate it, Todd. Well, let's just jump right in. I made a little post the other day posing a question about a tract that we're working on as a recreational development. It's got a lot of pulpwood on it right now. And as Matthew well knows, because he's been getting a lot of my questions recently from up here, we just don't have anywhere to go with pulpwood right now. Markets are changing a lot, so I would like to go around kind of the table again or the room, and just for your specific location, just kind of give us a really brief summary of where the market is. The basics on what products are moving or hard to move, things like that. Andrew, if you want to start us off, we'll do that.
Yeah, here in Central Arkansas, it's pretty bleak right now. We can move as of, I guess, for a while there we were pretty limited in quotas on pine saw timber as well as just about everything else, and then they opened that up a couple of weeks ago, and we've been able to move a little pine saw timber the last couple of weeks. Right now the pulpwood's just non-existent as far as pine pulpwood. Of course, some of that we're limited in my part of the state, and a lot of the tracks I have, we're pretty limited by distance to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But the pulpwood market's just almost non-existent as far as pine. And then hardwood right now, the pallet mills are on quotas. The hardwood pulpwood mills are on quotas. We can move hardwood saw timber, but even at that, the prices are falling on hardwood saw timber right now. So now even tie logs are falling. So it's pretty bleak over here at the moment.
Yeah. Reeves?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's basically what Drew said is that everything's on quota right now. Hardwood saw timber is the only thing that we are fully open on, and really the only thing that price has stayed, relatively the same. We actually saw a little bit of a bump, but not too much. So I'm able to move chip and saw. If y'all are familiar, IP Rome. That's where most of our wood goes to, and they're just getting pounded from every direction right now. So they're on a. And that's the awful thing with the mill closures that we're seeing in the area. With one announced last week, the effect that's going to have. But that mill can only buy so much wood from so far out before they start slashing prices. And so we're hoping that doesn't take place soon, but that's kind of what we're afraid of here in the future. But I mean, and that's why we're here to talk about what do you do as a landowner. But that's kind of the spiel on where I'm at. Like I said, we've worked up to get some chip and saw quota, and we're able to survive off of that. But if you have to have a mixed track right now for us to really survive with the loggers I have, wanting to move 30 to 50 loads a week. You've got to have multiple products to move to make it happen. So that's our status right now.
Matthew, I'm gonna jump in here just a second. Without mentioning exactly where I'm talking about, heard a rumor last week here locally that we may be having another closure. Have you heard that, or is that just local folks' rumor mill?
I think it's local folks. Is it? I'm trying to think of which one it could be.
It's Albertville.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's in between. 2 weeks ago, I'd have said yeah. But today I'm like, nah, there's still hope.
Good deal. I figured it was just rumor mill really ramping up, but hey, you never know.
Well, guys, and before you guys go any further, I just want to put this out there. Like, generally speaking, just in the time that I've been around Jeremy, been around, Matt, Bray, people that are wildlife oriented, it seems like, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like most landowners have to really, really be sold on cutting timber off their property. Like most people don't want to do it because it's like, oh, I don't want you to get rid of all of my trees and stuff. So if you're wondering why we're talking about this, it directly impacts your ability to manage for wildlife. It's not just that people are wanting to cut trees and get paid. I mean, obviously that's part of it, but it directly affects what can be done to a property and managing it for wildlife. So
it also directly affects it because when we're doing a wildlife harvest, we're not just going in and doing a diameter cut or doing something like that. We're trying to shift a species composition. So a lot of times we may not be harvesting those high quality logs that typically get cut first on the quotas and that kind of stuff. A lot a lot of what we're cutting a lot of times is pallet wood. We're trying to save that 30-inch white oak sitting out there. That's the money tree, but that's the one we're trying to save, and that's the one we're trying to propagate. So, we got to cut some to make more, but that creates a whole nother issue when we're not cutting the primo species to be able to move it.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. Yeah, you guys keep doing your thing. I've got to run downstairs. I got to text my wife, but you guys keep doing your thing. I'll be right back.
All right. Todd, what's the outlook for you guys down there?
It's pretty sad. Probably since the middle of February up until this week, I've had about 5 different loggers. None of them have worked a Friday in basically 2 months. And some of these guys are, 20 load a day guys that they can't stand to miss a day of work.
Right.
We have the luxury of a few more outlets than, some people have. We've got quite a few paper mills, quite a few saw mills, some pellet mills, OSB plants. We've got options. But what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, you've really seen it, that they have us a staggered shutdown. Like IP will shut down this 3 weeks. And then LP will shut down this 3 weeks. And then GP will shut down this 3 weeks. And what happens is you have about a 2.5 to 3 month long cadence of shutdown after shutdown after shutdown. And that just basically takes one outlet completely out of play. And everybody else is full. So instead of just going through a short burst of squeeze and kind of tough it out, it elongated to like 3 month long ordeal that everybody's getting 3.5 days, and it's getting in some folks' pocketbook. And supply and demand, when you've got a mill that's not taking, everybody else gets full. The price goes down. Everybody's grumbling. We've had loggers that work for the same company trying to cheat each other out of loads on Monday. It's tough. It's so bad. I done something last week I've never done. I gave a logger 23 loads of pine tops. Just give it to him.
Yeah.
Because nobody would buy the double deck wood. He had a place he could set it down. He said, I might can haul it later and pay you something. I said, look, dude, I know you've been struggling. If you didn't take them off, I was going to pile them up and burn them. You saved me the time and effort of having to burn them. That's what we're dealing with. Now, plus side for us, we have been moving chip and saw. We've been able to move a few poles. Pine pulpwood is sketchy at best. And hardwood pulpwood is just about non-existent. Hardwood logs, pretty good. But, that can change with a phone call, literally. They tell you Monday, bring us 5 loads. And then Tuesday afternoon, don't bring any more.
Yep.
So everything's operated off a light switch now. It's different. And it's hard to plan. And honestly, I don't know how these loggers are going to make it.
Talking to your point, I had a crew that they literally moved in. Luckily, this site, kind of like he was talking about mixed wood track, but they literally moved into this side of the property, punched a set in, got a phone call and said, nope, we're not hauling hardwood this week.
Yeah.
And, fortunately, we were able to bounce back over to the pine and get rolling. But,
Clint, how many crews are you trying to manage quotas for?
We're running 6 crews right now.
Yeah, it's a headache, I'm sure.
It's a big headache. We're in the same situation with shutdowns. It seems like it's a rolling pattern of one mill after the other, and that just really throws a kink in the supply system. And we get a lot of we dedicate some crews to doing nothing but selective harvest. And when you're doing first thinnings and second thinnings only, and you go into this 3-4 month pattern like Todd's talking about, those crews can't move those products. So then you want to move those crews to more of a final harvest or an older timber, and then that clogs the supply up on those mills. And it just it's like this huge domino effect that just, I think it would be better for everybody if they could figure out how to take shutdowns at different times. But
I think it's a shortage of the men that can actually do the work.
I think that's it. There's only a few of those contractors that can really do that pulp mill shutdown work, and so you got to take them when you can get them, I think. But
sounds like a business opportunity for somebody.
No doubt.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I think it's a big hurdle to get into it, but if you could get into it,
Yeah.
you probably do really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not in procurement, and I don't do a whole lot of harvest, but I do some. And I mean, Matthew is one of our go-to guys up here, and I keep calling him and keep sending him looking at stuff, and I know the answer, but I've got to, I guess, keep my fiduciary responsibility to my clients and customers. But we're at a point now that I've been standing on several tracks saying, "Hey, we will pay you something to cut the timber."
Yeah.
And they're looking back at us and going, "Well, that's fine, well and good, but we don't have anywhere to haul it."
Yeah.
So we're at a point now that even loggers can't even be a service provider where they're getting paid by the actual landowner versus, getting paid by the buyer or cutting their own wood and paying themselves. So we're in a unique situation right now, and I work with a lot of landowners that wildlife is. I'm gonna back up because wildlife's way up here, and timber revenue's way down here.
Right.
A lot of them don't even care if they make anything, but we have to get wood off the landscape to properly manage for wildlife. So now we can't even hardly do that, even paying for it.
Yeah.
So it's a
Jeremy,
it's a
one
tough
thing
time.
I'd say, one thing this year and really last year too, that's kind of unique and is really compounding the problem worse than we could have imagined is just how dry it has been.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's been exceptionally dry. We had a crew in a river swamp in January. That's
Yeah.
insane.
I did too.
I've never
Yeah.
done it before.
I had 2 hardwood tracks that finished up second week of January
Yeah,
on the
so-
Black Warrior River, and that's
Yeah.
that's
Oh
unheard
boy.
of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm over here in East Arkansas. I'm over here in the Delta of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Cutting timber in March and April is just like this is supposed to be. When I'm sitting back and working on management plans and doing a little timber inventory,
Right.
but we're kicking up dust and powder like it's like August powder
Yeah.
on logging roads right now, and
Strange.
and we didn't have the weather to shut everybody down, so the mills never burn up any inventory.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Little more of a layperson question here, and then one of you can take the bull by the horn, or you can all throw in your 2 cents because everybody wants to get political about things. How do tariffs play a role in where we stand now in the market, or do they?
I think they do.
I think they probably affect pay for sure.
So, say that again, Todd.
I know it's affected the pellet market some.
Okay.
The exports for hardwood, for sure.
Yeah, red oak especially.
Yeah.
I think red oak has really suffered from Chinese tariffs.
Matthew.
A lot of our red oak goes to Asia, China, those countries. So.
Okay.
And Jeremy, like you said, not to get political, but it kind of is what it is when it affects the business. But we've got a mill here that's trying to be built, but their cost almost doubled to build the mill due to the tariffs. So there's things like that, that we're waiting on a mill to come up that would hopefully help, our wood basket. Yet while we're waiting on them to go up, another mill shuts down that takes competition away from them in the future to where we're pretty much back in the same boat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about markets, and we don't want to depress everybody. So let's dive into to management for the future. One thing that I see, and it irks me to my core, and I got to kind of be careful because we do a lot of contract work for landowners that enroll in federal programs like EQIP, CSP, and things like that. But what's killing us is we're going through big time periods like we are now where we're struggling, yet the feds are still subsidizing and paying landowners to plant timber. And a lot of times it's on tracks that aren't operational. They're too small, so to speak, for us to operate in now, where you guys can definitely give more input here. But I have loggers now that even if it's a clear cut, if it's not something really, really stout, if it's less than 60 acres, they don't even want to hear from me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are y'all running into the same thing?
Yeah, pea patching days are over. You know, you could have a 5 acres of this and 10 acres of that, and yeah, I think a 40-acre minimum.
Yeah,
and that's if it's on the side of the road. If you got a track back in the sticks and it's hard to get to, you better make a pretty good sizable block to entice somebody to come there. And that's something that's really happened, I'd say, in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I would say I've lost some of my small crews just because of the cost of operating. The equipment costs, insurance. They just can't produce the volume, to overcome those costs. So, our ability to harvest those really small areas has went away, and it's really more of an economic issue for the logger than it is, being able to operate on smaller ground is fine when you got low cost equipment and you can do it. But I would say I don't really have a crew that's interested in anything less than 40 acres.
Yeah,
I mean that's the minimum.
Yeah.
And we all kind of talked how bleak pulpwood was. So you guys are foresters. You guys are either or have been responsible for trees going in the ground, hopefully green side up. But if you were working with a landowner now from a consulting standpoint, in the situation that we're in, and it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better, at least in the near future. I mean, are you still planting the same number of trees and trying to first thin, or are you backing off that? Whatever you guys plan on spacing, whether it's 745 per acre, whatever it may be. Do you see a benefit in backing off planting density?
But very much so. Yes.
Yeah, I'm on a really good site, 500 max, and that's a containerized tree where I know I'm going to get a good survival. If it's, I might go a little lower in some sites, and I kind of gauge them, Jeremy, by site index and logability. If it's a wet weather track, I'll kind of tend to a higher density. If it's a transitional track, I'm shooting at 500. If it's a track you can only cut it 3 or 4 months out of the year when it's really dry, I'm going down to around 400. But these are containerized trees.
Yeah.
My plan's to thin them one time. They get about 16 or 17. And unless things change, when that average DBH gets about 12.5, which should happen around age 26 or 27, we're going to get in there and slick it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when we first thin it, we're going to take it down to about 150 trees an acre. We lose a few trees, we'll be okay.
Are you guys seeing, because y'all are buying and cutting way more than I am. I'm working for just strictly private landowners. From the industrial side or large private landowners, are you seeing any attempt to forego even thinning, just growing 17, 18 years and clear cutting?
Wet weather sites.
Wet weather?
It's a track you can cut when it's wet, and it's got good access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same for you up here in the rocky ground, Matthew?
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing also, like with some of our large landowners, they're doing what Todd just said, thin them once and then clear cut them. Their second thinnings are really a thing of the past up here right now. It's not, there's not enough time going back to the acreage stuff. I've got a track I'm working on now. It's 20 acres, but they want to second thin it. I have nobody I can put on that. And that's just that's not his fault to the landowner. You know, at one point that was doable. There were people that could do that. But now when you have to move the amount of wood and the different products, it just makes it harder. But yeah, we're seeing quicker turnaround rotations, and that also has a lot to do with one of our markets. The butt size, the max butt size for our main chip and saw market is 19 inches, and you know, a lot of landowners think big trees, big money, and that's not always the case. And especially if you start running into oversize. So if you're a landowner and you listen to this and you're wondering what oversize is, that's when it doesn't fit into their debarking machine at the mills. So let's say, you know, it's a 19-inch tree that's the maximum. You cut a tree, process it, it's 24 inches at the butt. Logger's going to butt jump that until he gets to 19 inches. So you may be left with a 6-foot stick of wood that's not usable for anything. And so if you time your harvest right, you can prevent that. So just be on the lookout as a landowner, you know, talk to a forester in your area so that you know your markets, because we're currently dealing with a large landowner that didn't know that. And they currently have a lot of oversized stuff with nowhere to go with it. So there's going to be a lot of, you know, sticks left that can't be utilized for anything.
Yeah. And you guys got the deeper education than I do on this. What I'm trying to figure out the right way to ask this question. What percentage of the volume of the tree in that example have you just cut off? A 24 in the first 6 foot, you know, or make that make sense to a landowner, dollars and cents wise.
I think I'm right. The old way of looking at it when we were taught was half the volume is in the first 16-foot log of the tree. So
that's the heaviest part of the tree, the densest part.
Yeah.
So if you're cutting 6 foot out of that, you're losing a significant amount of
maybe 25-30%.
I mean,
the whole tree.
Even if you're cutting 2 foot off of it, and you do that on a bunch of trees, it will add up for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, kind of like what Matthew was talking about, though, the price difference now to go from a chipping saw to a small saw timber, the variance isn't that much.
No.
I mean, why would you want to grow a tree 10 more years or get it 8 inches more in diameter to pick up $3 a ton? The time value of money that it takes to do that, it just doesn't make sense.
And
you could be halfway through another stand by the time you hit that. Now, I will say the exception to that is if you've got a tract with a lot of poles in it. And occasionally you'll get a tract that's a lot of straight pole and piling trees. And those trees, the market's 13.5 inches at 6 foot. So if you've got a bunch of trees that are 12 inches DBH at 4.5 foot off the ground, and you want to get them to 13.5, you might want to kick that harvest down the road a little ways, because now that tree is, instead of it being $20 a ton, now it's worth $40 a ton.
Yeah,
it's worth the wait.
Drew, what are you guys doing over there? Y'all clear cutting and planting rice?
That's what we ought to be doing. But, you know, luckily most of my stuff over here, you know, I've got a few clients over in the west part of the state where we get into the hills and get into true pine country. But for the most part, we deal with hardwood over here. And I've got, you know, the odd and end CRP tract that's got pine on it. But for the most part, you know, loblolly is not even native to my part of the state.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pine here, but there's, you know, not a lot of pine here too, compared to the south half of the state and the west half of the state, where you get into the big timber company portions.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like you, Jeremy. I predominantly deal with private landowners. I do a lot of inventory and stuff for some of the private companies, but I primarily deal with private landowners and trying to develop the forestry into their wildlife plans.
You know,
gotcha.
One thing I would say, there was a question, or I guess a statement toward private landowners about density, or how many trees do we plant per acre. we're definitely trending to the lower end of historical levels, 400. But I would say it's very important in the first 2 to 3 years of that stand's life that you come out of that first 2 or 3 years at a workable trees per acre, because you have no shot at managing that stand at 800,000 trees to the acre. And you kind of run out of silvicultural options or timber management options at about age 4, age 5. Pre-commercial thinning is really not an option after the trees get so big. So
that's right.
It's really vital for any size of private landowner to understand I don't need to be at age 8 with 900,000 trees to the acre.
And you can have too few and have a bunch of short woolly trees.
Yes.
Or you can have too many and have a bunch of tall skinny pencils. You got to find that happy median.
What I know is
300 to 500 is a
300 to 500.
That's I'm pretty happy. I'm in that range.
Jeremy, kind of to your point though, the scary part over here right now is the pulpwood market. So whereas y'all deal with a lot of pine down in y'all's part of the world, and we've got over 1 million acres of CRP, WRP, plant, afforestation, stuff that people have planted in hardwoods over the last 20 years that are, pushing, 400 trees to the acre of 20-year-old hardwoods. And, we're, what do you do with them? They need thin now, like we're seeing, you're seeing stands that are just covered up with hypox and canker and, trees falling out here, there, and yonder, but, there's nowhere to move it. You got 10 to 12 inch trees, pushing, maybe you could do something else with them one day, but they're, most of them aren't formed well enough to get a saw log out of. And so right now, the big thing right now is there's a whole lot of stuff, especially with the NRCS. They're going through and basically doing a plantation thin and just cutting them and leaving them on the ground.
Are they? Okay.
What species is that, Drew? Is that like oak or is that poplar?
Yeah, it's all, over here it's all oak, and you've got some different variations. There for a little while they were planting straight up. They might go in and plant 400 acres of nut all, and that's what it would be. They did, over the years they started getting some different, playing with some species mix and getting some different species mix, but you got to plant 2 or 3. If you're going to go mix in ash or sweet gum or something, you got to plant 2 or 3 rows to actually get those to be able to compete enough to get up there with the oaks. And it's kind of a mess. Like I said, right now that's kind of what everybody's doing is
different species.
There's a whole lot of just cut and essentially cut and drop, but running a machine through there and every 4th row and thinning in between.
Well, that was interesting. I made a post the other day, about what to do in a particular stand, and we got comments from can to can't, and I'm not even going to go through any of them about what they were. But so you're talking about NRCS is helping you, and I feel like down here NRCS programs are kind of hurting us.
Well, I'm not going to say whether it's helping, hurting, whatever, but they're doing it. They own, like on a WRP easement, they own the management rights. So they're, like especially on any of the Fish and Wildlife Service or Game and Fish properties that they have management rights to. That's kind of where they started, and they're rocking and rolling with it.
That's interesting because I know Brock has done a couple of stands in South Alabama. I think maybe Greene County, where they have gone through and they just hack and squirted some of them and just letting them stand there and die because there was really nothing to do with them, primarily because of the size of the stands. Because that's a pretty good market down in that part of the world.
These are, I've seen them do it on 200 plus acre stands.
Wow.
Like they're doing it in chunks.
Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, it's at least providing, and these trees are, they're up there where they need to be released. And I mean, you got to do something. It just hurts to spend $300 an acre to do something that once upon a time we could have got paid for.
Yes, and I guess that's one of the real reasons for this particular episode is landowners have to really muddle their way through and figure out what's best for their particular location. But that's one reason that we highly encourage employing a forester and other professionals to help you make these decisions. Because we encountered a particular customer that pretty widespread acreage. They went in and did a cut and drop in a pine plantation, and then he called and wanted it burned. Well, you guys can imagine what the fuel loading looks like under that stand. There's no way to burn it, for years, or we're just absolutely going to smoke every tree in there. So get somebody that understands what's happening, to help you through that process.
It's scary right now because I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball and knew what to do. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, you kind of, stuck between a rock and a hard place because you can either sit there and watch them die and let them thin themselves, or you can go in there and pay somebody and, at least get you some sunlight back on the ground. But, sometimes, it's just a lot of times those stands aren't, they're probably not the greatest, probably not ever going to be the greatest, have greatest foreign trees in the world, but it's a starting place. At least you got a seed source, and it's not a cotton field on not a cotton field on a sand blow now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Matthew, you and Todd, y'all both kind of for y'all's area. If you had a fully stocked pine plantation that was still pulpwood products, what would your guys' recommendation be? Now for your particular area, because y'all are vastly different.
Yes, and that it also depends on the location of the track, and that's one of the things you and I have been talking about with these tracks. One, our main paper mill that we have, they had a turbo go out in their facility, so that has limited what they can consume. And so with that, everybody's on quota. So not to harp on the market thing, but when I went in to the business of being a dealer, it was all chip and saw. Buy chip and saw, buy chip and saw, buy chip and saw. That's what everybody wants to cut. Well, we had some things happen, and then it was, hey, we need first thinnings. Well, you jump on first thinnings, then you need to jump back on chip and saw. So it's been a constant revolving door of jumping back and forth the product. So, I don't want to say patience, but patience is going to be the biggest thing for these landowners. I know I looked at a stand today that had beetles in it. That's one of the things that's really popped its head up these last 2 years is a lot of beetle damage. And typically beetles hit stands that aren't thinned or mismanaged stands. So, it doesn't matter, if we reach out to landowners or not, it's like you said, most people don't want to cut their trees until they're all dead, and then they start calling you. And
at
so
the point the bark's falling off.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do anything with that. But no, I think as far as our pulpwood markets, in the next 2 years, I think it's going to get better up here. As far as just pulpwood. Now, I don't know with chip and saw and what the ripple effect on that's going to be. But I do think just be patient with it.
So we're not pushing the panic button now.
No, I mean, is it terrible right now? Yes and no. I mean, we're still surviving. And I came from a corporate standpoint where I didn't have to move wood to make money, and now moving wood is what makes money and what I'm doing. So it's changed my mindset on things. And I also came in at the worst time possible. So my perspective is it can't get any worse than what it is right now. And I said that 2 weeks ago, and it got a little worse. I don't know. I just think if we can survive the next year and a half, things are going to take a turn, because we're either going to be short on loggers from loggers going out of business, which that's going to make mills have to depend on other people, and it's going to put them in a tighter spot, which that can make quotas go away, and it can make prices increase potentially. Who knows? That's all speculation. But I think if we can just be patient and let it run its course, I think it'll get better.
Yeah. Matthew, what do you think is going to? You sounded a little optimistic about the pulpwood market coming back. I mean, I know I'm a long way from you, but that might be the first optimistic tone I've heard. What do you think is kind of driving what you think might make it come back?
Yeah, no, I think with us, we have a big player that could be coming into effect in a year or two in my wood basket. And they're going to consume a lot more wood than the mill that just closed. So I'm hoping that they can make up for that. And when IP Rome is running and they're running right, everything is pretty smooth. And what we've seen too is we've seen an influx from the people from the South. Not y'all, Todd. Y'all are good. Y'all aren't boogering us yet. But some people have started coming back up to the South because their markets are bad in that area. So that we're getting volume from places we typically wouldn't get volume from. So I'm thinking just over time, everything's just going to kind of play its way out. And I try to have the glass half full mentality looking at this, because I mean, wood business, I mean, you can talk to some foresters and they say, don't ever go in it, but we still stay in it and we love what we do. And that's just part of our job. So that's my take on what I think the future holds as far as the markets.
Just got a good feeling about it,
Yeah, I mean,
I'll take it.
You've got to, or you're going to just be in a corner just crying. Like I said, I went to the turkey woods this morning and I just cried, hoping the business would get better. But no, you got to have some positivity and try to push through and just make it to the next day.
I guess the one positive is from a wildlife perspective. I feel like there's more people who want to do work now. I'm getting more phone calls about people. I'm not having to talk to a landowner and say, "Hey, I think we need to go cut some timber," and they go, "Whoa!" I mean, that's usually maybe even brought up by the landowner. That, hey, we're interested in cutting some timber and getting some better wildlife. So I feel like that's a positive on that note from a private land perspective, and getting more people more educated about wildlife management.
Yeah, it's definitely.
He just really touched on it right there.
Mm-hmm.
My take on this is, let's just say a tract of land sold 10 years ago for $2,000 an acre, and it was a $1,200 an acre in timber and $800 an acre in dirt. Well, a $2,000 an acre tract of land sells today is probably $1,400 an acre in dirt and $600 an acre in timber. Mm-hmm. The people are paying for that dirt. And y'all know as well as anybody, that recreational buyer. So just like Drew said, there's more emphasis on that wildlife now than there's ever been in land buyer. And people are buying today, that timber growth may not be their highest priority as it was just a few short years ago.
That's right. And unfortunately, we're still seeing agents price it where
they want the top of both. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Like for me, my job is to manage a big portion of the land for a large private landowner, basically, and part of that return on that investment is recreation. And
we talked about that today.
Yeah,
about hunting leases.
We talked about that today. It's like if we can provide a good place to hunt that has a quality experience for the hunter or the leaseholder, then our ability to make that return for the landowner is there.
Yeah,
and so it's a big deal for us. Like it's not. I would say when I started in the business, we discounted it. We were a timber business solely.
That's right.
Hunting kind of came as a little side business, but that's Todd's right. That's not the case now. There's management decisions that I make as a forester that are very one-sided toward wildlife, toward recreation, because it's such an important income stream for us.
I mean, how many times have you heard somebody say you're going to evaluate that pine plantation at $50 per acre per year? There ain't no way at 3 and 4 ton pulpwood to get $50 an acre per year. Now, you get $15 an acre hunting lease, and now you only got to come up to 35. There's a possibility there.
Yeah, Well, that was my firsthand experience when I walked in. The first conversation I had when I started in the timber company side with a pretty large landowner, and they told me what their average lease rate was, and I said, all right, we're going to up that 100%, and their eyes got huge, and but you know how many leases we had drop? 4%.
That's not bad.
And it has steadily gone up from there. When I walked in the doors, their average lease rate was $4, $4 an acre, and we immediately went up to $8. And of course, that company's out of business now.
Gee, thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, look, I had places in Alabama that I couldn't go by myself. That it was mandated with the company for a while that I had to have somebody with me. That time has passed, and high-end recreational value now is something that everybody in the market realizes, whether you're an industrial timberland grower or you're a private landowner, that recreation is valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm laying out a timber sale now. My SMZs are not 35 feet wide.
That's right.
I'm getting them as wide as I can. And if I can loop around 6 or 8 white oaks on the foot of that ridge, I'm going around. And that food plot, it's not a half-acre patch anymore. It's 2 or 3 acres in a good spot in a way that you can access it. That's a huge decision, because if something bad happens and that landowner, he has to have a flash sale. We got to get out. We need to sell it. Something came up. You need to put him in a position that he can at least get as much as possible to market or better.
Yeah,
and by setting it up for wildlife, because the next buyer is probably not a timber investor. He's somebody looking for a place to take his family or a couple of buddies away. That's the buyer. That's what you got to manage for.
Yeah, we're shooting for like 3% of the lease to be in food plots.
Yeah, that's strong. When I was at Soterra, when we first started that program in 2007, our target was 1%, and I don't know where it ended up after that. After I left in 2014, but back then, you guys know that was unheard of. Timber companies did not cut out food plots and expand the acreage on their tracks. If anything, they ran right through the middle of them when they clear cut it and prepped it. They went back through and planted them up.
I was going to circle back to like what I would tell a private landowner about thinning. I would say wherever you are, I'm an old school forester. I am not. It's hard for me to swallow that I could have to thin something and not at least break even on it. I think Todd would say the same thing, but I would say this: having a advocate for you in the form of some type of forestry person who is aggressively trying to get a logger to come and thin the timber, to market the wood, it's going to be, even as the market declines, that's even more important, because I think Todd can tell you, I see this, you can be a private landowner and be on somebody's list, and you may be 40th in line to get your.
That's right.
You better not put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
You've got to have multiple people, and hey, you may have to take less than what Jimmy offered you down the road, but this guy can move on it next week. Let's go.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really got to
It's
be
gonna-
aggressive, to get them thinned. You do.
Yeah, it's going to cost you a percentage, but the return's there in the long run.
And I tell you, I've
I was
done this
going to
too.
ask.
I've kind of packaged some deals with wet weather tracks, with
Yeah.
summer tracks,
Yeah,
with performance deposit. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
If they can't afford to give me a $3,000 performance deposit, I don't need them
Yeah.
cutting for me anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. And that, Taylor, we'll get right to you, but I wanted to mention something. And my mind almost has just totally gone blank. Taylor, ask what you were going to ask.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. So when you guys were talking about oversized trees and trying to make sure that you don't miss your window, like if you're a landowner, how far in advance do you need to be in contact with someone about cutting timber off your property? Like, is that something you need to go, hey, I want to do this, this time next year. I want to give you an entire year's notice to get this going. Or like Todd said, hey, this guy can move on this next week. It might cost a little more, but he's willing to do it, and he's willing to do it quickly. Like, how far in advance do you need to, as a landowner, to kind of schedule this stuff out?
And before y'all answer, I want to add a couple things to that. Advance notice, and two, what kind of length of contracts are you guys seeing most commonly? And then third, are you guys seeing any lump sum sales anymore? I hear the laugh.
Y'all got all that?
All right, I'll take this. Okay, I got to go to the lump sum part. I had a timber sale the other day, and I've got to where now I let people turn in per unit ton bids, per ton bids, or a lump sum bid on several sales. This last sale, I had 4 per unit bids and 1 lump sum. I publish volumes. I cruise the timber. I take their numbers that they put, and that's how I work it out. And show it to the landowner and say, here we go. It just happened that the lump sum bid was the highest.
Really?
They
Congratulations.
were. Yeah, I got a home run there. That was
Take
good.
a deep breath.
Yeah.
And it's so opposite of what it was 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, I'd say 75% of the sales were lump sum. Now it's probably less than 20.
I'd say that's true. Yeah.
Reeves, you got anything to add to that?
I mean, yeah, everything's per unit right now for us. But I'm going to jump on the contract and to the planning part as a landowner. We alluded to they could jump. If you had the opportunity to jump on it pretty quick, that's kind of a hey, the mill wants this. It's all mill dependent. The odds of you getting that can be pretty slim. But what I typically do on my contracts is I'm usually a 12-month to 18-month contract. Just that gives me time with the markets. I'm not trying to hold you out 2 years, unless it's just like a really big track or I have, say, a lump sum on it. If I did a lump sum today with somebody, I'd probably have a pretty long contract with the ability to extend, just to, with the risk of the markets and the mills and everything that's going right now. That's kind of what I would look at. But as a landowner, if you called me today and I was talking to you, I've got openings this summer that, we could fit something in. And that's the other thing too is, timber's not hitting the markets like it was just a couple weeks ago. And, if you've been a wood buyer for any time, there's ebbs and flows. Some months you buy a pile of tracks. Some months you don't buy any tracks. It just kind of, with anything like sales, it just fluctuates. But, I don't think anybody's too backed up right now. Some people probably have a long catalog, especially if they're cutting company wood. But as far as private landowners, where I'm at, there's not a lot of large landowners. So we're in that pocket of, if you find a 60-acre tract, that's a big tract. And those larger 300-400 acre tracts, that's company wood. And so we have some stuff coming up, in the future that I see some more sales coming out. But we're just kind of in a limbo period right now. But that's pretty much my take on what a landowner can expect time frame wise.
Well, that's
one thing I was just going to
Go
say
ahead,
one thing. I'm sorry. Yeah. One thing I was going to say, we put out a big sale in East Mississippi, and we were not real familiar with that market area. And you can put out a sale that's too small, but you can also put out a sale that's too large on a per unit basis. And we did that. We put out a sale, very good sale, of a very good tract of timber, but it was too large. And the guy that bought the timber, good guy, good buyer, quality person, he just ran out of market. He ran out of time, ran out of price. And now, we got a somewhat finished tract of timber that's going to be hard to go back and finish,
Yeah. How big was that?
It's like
tell us.
Maybe 300 and a little bit over 300 acres.
Yeah. Okay.
I tell you that we're in a unique position right now too, because there are a lot of timber buyers. Matthew, you might be one of them. You've traded on tracts, maybe even last year, and that you've already give that landowner these prices. And diesel fuel is $5 a gallon. Logging rate, the delivered price at the mill is you can't come out. You can't cut that tract. If you did, you would lose $3 a ton.
That's right.
So now's the opportunity, and that's how I'm trying to look at some of this, because I've got a few places that are pretty crappy, hard to get to spots, and people are calling me going, "Hey, what you got?" Because what they've got tied up already, they can't afford to cut. They cannot break even.
Yep.
So they're looking to buy something. Hey, we're going to take a little hit, take a cheaper price, but we're going to get it done.
Todd, I could talk on that for a while with what you're saying. I had a landowner I looked at last summer. He had a lot of smaller stuff that was not very – nobody was attracted to it at all. It was a 30-acre block and had a couple other blocks, but – he held one big track of chipping saw over their head. You got to cut all these small ones before you can cut the big one, kind of deal. And, at the time I walked away from it because it wasn't a good track. It just wasn't worth the headache. Well, 2 months ago, that track was perfect for what we were looking for. And so we were able to go in there and cut something that typically would not be cut. And the funny thing is, what I thought was the worst track, it ended up cutting like 70 tons to the acre. And so it did a lot better than we thought. But then, we talk about tracks that we priced, last summer. I bought a track in June, gave prices. We had mill closures. Landowners wondering why we haven't cut the track. I said, well, I can't deliver the wood anywhere. Well, had an opportunity this last 3 weeks to renegotiate price. They were up for renegotiating. And so that's another thing, being able to work with landowners. We're not here just to cut your wood and leave. Even though I'm a dealer and that's what dealers are known for, I'm also a registered forester and try to help you with that process. But if they wanted their wood cut with where they were, they would have to take a little bit less for us just to break even. We're not getting rich off the track. We're just trying to get it cut and let them hit their next management goal. So it's just a lot of variables when it comes to that, but you've got to be able to talk with your landowners and be able to see what their goal is. And that's what I always ask a landowner when we're talking about timber or any kind of improvement. What is your goal for the property? Is it timber management? Is it wildlife management? And then let's go from there. So communication is huge when conducting timber harvesting or any kind of management. So that's just one of the many examples we could all probably talk about.
Yeah, that's something I factor into my contract stuff is, do you want top dollar or do you want this moved now? Because that's, if we want top dollar, we're going to have to put a 2-year contract window on that because they're going to cut it when they can. They're if you're just wanting to get this moved, we can throw a 1-year window, or even maybe if it's a bigger tract, throw a 2-year window on it and say you got to be here within 90 days. we can do some stuff like that. But that's kind of Taylor and getting a forester that's familiar with your area and knows how to be able to achieve your goals, because there's multiple ways to skin that cat, and it's gonna come out in different ways for the landowner. If you're dead set, I want it moved and I want it moved now, that a lot of times that's possible. Sometimes it's not right now, but sometimes that's possible, but you've got to be willing to maybe eat a little money on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just didn't know if somebody kind of skips the consulting phase from getting a forester out there, something like that, and just says, I want to hire a timber crew to come cut some stuff off my property. Is that even feasible? Like, can you even get somebody to come out there in 30 days, or is this something that's like, hey man, like, this is kind of a funny example, but we were going to go to NWTF, like to the convention in Nashville. And so I hit up our buddy it's on the same network that we are with our podcast. Paul Campbell works for NWTF, and we're like, hey Paul, what does booth space cost to go to NWTF? And he's like, well, there's a 3-year waiting list to get in. Like, what? I couldn't believe, I thought he was joking. And I was like, I couldn't believe that when he said it. And so I think, it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you guys that if you want timber cut off your property, it's kind of the same way. Hey, you don't just call somebody and they come out next week and cut trees off your place. Like it may take some time, especially like Drew was saying, if you want top dollar, you want to wait for the right guys.
Well, make no mistake, Taylor, you can, but you better grease up good before you take it.
Yeah. More planning is required for something you got to cut in the summer than the winter. I'll say that. But yeah.
Right.
Don't expect anything to happen fast these days.
No.
Well, and then you'll have a landowner get upset with you, and they'll go, well, I'm going to find somebody else that'll do it. Go ahead. Be my guest. I had a gentleman.
When you get them, when you get that person, won't you give them my number? Because I need some.
What we're running into here is, loggers are in short supply. Yeah. And good loggers are in even shorter supply. Guys that I truly trust that I don't feel like I got to be out there sure enough babysitting, and they're in short supply. And to be frank, they know it.
Well, let me tell you that's a great segue to this. I've got a big tract. Taylor's been on there. We've got a lot of footage on this particular property on the western side of Alabama. Where we've had a great relationship with a logger over there and timber buyer for a number of years, going back to where he was, with a previous company even. But he called looking for some wood to try to keep them from going out of business. And it's a logger that I don't want to lose from a wildlife thinning standpoint. We were able to sell them a 400-acre sale. They can sit on that thing for the next 2 years and ride this thing out if they have to, because I know the quality of job that I'm going to get done. They're a pretty slow crew, so it's going to take them a while to work through that thing, and it's a great mix of products. They may have to bounce around on the track, but we're going to keep them in business.
Jeremy,
I can't stand to lose them.
You hit a good point too, Jeremy. I've sold tracks to the logger I wanted cheaper than the highest bid because I knew the quality of job I was going to get.
Yeah.
And I actually had to take a landowner out. I said, okay, this is what this guy job looks like. I said, let's get in the truck right down the road. And I said, this is the other guy's. Now, which one do you want? And it wasn't even a question.
Yeah.
Well, he's less money, but look at the job, and it's something to consider. Like Drew said, you get a good logger. Good logger got a place to go anytime he wants. Anytime.
And there's not any new loggers coming.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just it's such high overhead to even get into, and with the markets that we have today, nobody's going. Let me go drop $500,000 or $750,000 on something that I'm going to struggle to make a living with. I mean,
Yeah.
there ain't a lot of people chomping at the bit to go invest that kind of money to work that hard.
We've got two.
That's right.
We've got two guys in my area. One's in his late 30s and one is in his mid 30s, and they're the two youngest guys in our area right now. And they're good. They're good loggers, and that they both cut for me. And the plan is to keep having them cut for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
A logger's a businessman these days.
Yeah.
He's got a cutter,
Got to be.
and a loader, and a skidder, and a crew cab, 2 or 3 trucks. I mean, he's got $1.5 million easy. He's got a little bit better than a 625 credit score to get in the logging.
That's right. That's right.
He's got to be a businessman. He's got to be smart. And, I mean, you think about it, guys. Hey, when we were 25, 30 years old, I mean, it takes a lot of stones to borrow that kind of money to get in it. And
That's right.
in the logging business, a lot of people don't understand a lot of your hidden cost is in your insurance.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, insurance is bad.
Your workman's comp and all that. And when you're starting from scratch, they price you at the top. After you get a few years of no accidents, that rate goes down over time. That's why you see a lot of these older guys kind of sell to a younger person. They're getting some equity in that equipment, but they're really buying that lower rate, that lower insurance.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the old loggers we used to think of back in the 80s and 90s, now these loggers today, I mean, they're pretty astute businessmen to keep it going.
You got to be able to cash flow that kind of operation and that kind of bills and that much that many pieces of moving equipment, and not counting factoring in breakdowns, because it never fails. You get rolling, something's gonna break.
Amen.
So it's just I don't envy them. I'm glad they're there, and I can't do my job without them, but I don't envy it.
Yeah. Well, fellas, we rocked along a little over an hour. I told you we'd try to keep it at that. That way you guys could get back to your families and your other rat killings. We really appreciate you being on. One thing that I do want to make sure that we mention here at the end, especially for these folks that have hung out this long, that all these guys are in the Habitat Network. You can get into contact with them. So if you're north central Alabama, you're central Alabama to East Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, we've got folks that can walk you through all these processes, and these are some of those guys. That's why we have them on. But anyway, if you guys want to leave us with parting thoughts for your perspective and your part of the world, take off.
I'll start, I guess, is for landowner, don't stop management just because you see the markets are bad. You need to plan for the future. Just like planting trees, you don't plant trees for you. You plant trees for your grandkids, depending on what tree you plant, honestly. Just manage, do what you can, get your resources. These guys, through the Habitat Network, they're going to tell you the truth, the honest truth. Like they've said, we've all been vetted. We know what we're doing. We've been there. And we're going to help you the best we can, because at the end of the day, how we leave the forest or leave the habitat is going to impact what we enjoy doing. Because before we even hopped on this, we were all talking about turkey hunting and how much we like to turkey hunt.
That's right.
So we're foresters first, but we love to enjoy the outcomes of what we can do by manipulating habitat and all that stuff. So that's what I'm gonna leave you at. Don't just mope around. Try to be proactive and do your best to manage your property.
I'll just touch on what you said there. I mean, you got to keep managing. Sometimes we got to find ways around it, but the forest is always changing. Whether it's getting better or getting worse or somewhere in between, it's always changing. It may happen a little slower than what you notice. But I promise you that tract of land that you've been hunting for 20 years don't look the same way it did 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed dramatically, and it's a lot of times it's not always for the better. It typically, as the stand canopy's over, it's typically not getting a lot better. So you got to manage if you're gonna make good wildlife habitat.
Yeah, I just tell people, don't get intimidated. Reach out. There are people out there, like folks at the Habitat Network. There's foresters out there that are certainly willing and able to help you. It may cost you a little bit. I mean, their time is valuable, just like your time is valuable. But just understand that you're gaining a lot of experience. These guys on this podcast, you're probably talking about 60, 70 years of experience. They can help you make some decisions and figure it out. And one thing I've learned about the timber business, you wait a little bit, it's going to change. So about the time we've got it all figured out, something else will come along, I'm sure. But we'll help you the best we can. We've seen it, met around, and, we're not always right, but we'll do the best we can to help you.
Yeah, I would say, in a difficult market, that's really when a good forestry professional can help you the most. And I would, as a private landowner, I would definitely seek help, advocate for your own property with a professional. And I had an old boss at the sawmill. He was a 40-something-year-old guy. 40-something years of experience in the wood business. And he always used to say, what's your enemy this week will be your ally next week. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely, trust those professionals. They're trying to help you. They're trying to make the best decision they can for you. So that'd be my advice.
And really, from a wildlife perspective, closing out here, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, so definitely not what I would consider a super seasoned professional, but I've been in it for quite a while. But when it comes to managing a tract for wildlife and improving it, I don't think there's been but one tract in my career that didn't require cutting timber, didn't need it. And that one track absolutely needed it. He just wasn't willing to come hell or high water, and he's no longer a customer of mine because I couldn't help him anymore. So if you are that deep into managing wildlife, just prepare yourself. You're going to have to cut timber. So get a professional to do it.
Yep.
For sure. Well, yeah, guys, I appreciate you being on, and those of you who are listening along, I just want to encourage you, if you haven't already, you can join the Habitat Network, subscribe to it, and it's a very minimal fee. It's $45 for a 1-year annual membership, and that gets you access to a lot of these professionals that span across the entire Southeast. So we're adding professionals to that network literally every day. We're vetting them and adding new ones. So odds are, if you log on and you see that there maybe isn't a professional that you're looking for in your area, just give it some time. We're going through and adding people all the time. So probably won't be very long before we have the whole Southeast covered. And I don't know if we've mentioned this on this show or not, but we have wildlife biologists, registered foresters, certified burn managers, and certified drone pilots that make up the network at this point in time. So we've got plans to expand that into maybe even some fisheries and pond management, that sort of thing. So and maybe even some other stuff too. So just we've got these professionals that are writing articles and sharing info. Not only do you get a chance to hang out and talk with those guys, but you'll be added to a private Facebook group where all of them are also inside of it. You can share photos, you can ask questions, you can, we just want you to basically have access to these people and have a chance to ask people that know what they're doing and have the experience, the credentials, whatever you want to ask them. And they're here to be a resource for you. And that's kind of the whole point in creating the Habitat Network was to give you guys, access to people that can help you, and you can bounce ideas off. And cool thing so far is that these professionals have actually they're bouncing ideas off of each other as well. So like, what's going on? That's why what's going on maybe in Arkansas where Drew is at might be different than where, Mike Williams, I know he's not on the show. He's going to be on pretty soon, but Mike's kind of in lower Alabama, the Enterprise area. And, terrain's different, climate's different, soil types are different, whatever. And so you bounce ideas off of each other, and the professionals are doing that too, which is really cool. It's kind of not really something we were thinking about a whole lot, but it's just kind of a byproduct of what we got going on. So, but yeah, check it out, thehabitatnetwork.com. That's the shameless plug at the end there. But if you haven't already, check out the podcast. You can find it on any streaming platform and YouTube. So like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell us how stupid we are in the comments. We don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Just engage with us. That's, the reason that we do this thing is we want to hear from you. So if there's something you want us to cover in the future, or a topic or something like that, you can let us know that too. But I guess for now, that'll be it. Guys, again, thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll see y'all on the next one.
Thank you, guys.